Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations, and today I thought we would talk about adding dimension to our cards. I have 3 cards that I've made here, and I used the stamp set, this Birthday Piggy. Now this stamp set is found in the Stampin' Up annual catalog, the current annual catalog for 2022 to 2023. Now if this stamp set looks familiar to you, it's because a few years back we had this stamp set called This Little Piggy. Very cute images that I really enjoyed working with. And this time we have 3 more little piggies to work with. So what I have done with these cards, we've talked about adding dimension before, but I did a couple of things that are really easy and one that's still easy but maybe a little more complicated than I usually do. But this one, it's your birthday, and here's a cute little image right here of the little pig. I've used the little butterfly image a few times and just colored it with the Stampin' Blends. Then on the inside, go to your happy place and stay there all day. So one of the easiest ways to add dimension to a card is to, of course, use dimensionals, which is what I did for this card, for the image and down here. But also the layers. And each of these cards has layers. We have the card base, a mat, and then a mat for the focal panel on basically all of them. And that does add some dimension. Now on this one, yes, I used dimensionals and of course the layers, but I also fussy cut this pig. I just stamped the image, fussy cut the pig, and put him on there with dimensionals as well. And that does give it a little bit more dimension. Now this card, I did the same thing as I did here. I stamped my image, I stamped another one and cut out the pig. But instead of using dimensionals, I used a little spring mechanism to give him a little movement. It pops him up and adds the movement. So that just adds a whole new aspect to your dimension. We'll walk through these cards and I'll show you what I did for each of them. We'll start with this one. And as always, the supply list and cutting dimensions for these cards will be on my corresponding blog post and in the description of this video, which should be right below the video, where there's a little, mine has a little arrow on my iPad, and you just click on it and the description of the video will come down. So the cutting dimensions, supply list for all the cards will be on my blog, and the link to that blog will be in the description of this video. So here we go. I have same pieces here for the card. I just used some different colors. There's the inside, just like this one. And all we did, I put some dimensionals on the back, and that's what we'll do with the little piggy here. Pull the backings off. Little image on, and then we'll put our "It's Your Birthday," and there we go. We have some dimension to this card. And dimension is really just anything that gives your card a look that's not just flat. There's absolutely nothing wrong with cards that are just flat, but sometimes we like to add a little pop, and that's what layering can do, and that's what using the dimensionals can do. And that's what we did on this card, the dimensionals. We'll move on to the next card. And that's this little piggy says happy birthday. And inside, hope it's the best. And here we go. And once again, I don't know, I was in a crushed curry mood because I used crushed curry for this and for this one. As you can see, we have the card base, a mat, and another mat that's designer series paper, and of course inside, hope it's the best. And we're going to once again get those dimensionals out. Have our little die cut piggy here with the birthday cake. Oops. Put the little piggy right there. And then we have our sentiment, which we'll put on dimensionals. Peel these off. And then all I did was I stamped this image again, colored it in, but I just cut out the pig, just fussy cut it. And we'll add a couple dimensionals to the back of the pig. And all we do is put it right over the top of this one. And there we go. So that's another way to add a little dimension to your cards. Now for this one, like I said, it's just a little more complicated, but not much. I just made a little spring. And there are some on the market that you can buy. I forget the name of them at the moment. But I'll have that on my blog. But it's easy to make. It does, like I said, it takes maybe a little practice and maybe just a little bit of time. But as you can see, we have, again, the card base and the mat, another mat, and then the image. And there's nothing, this card looks perfectly fine. Just like that, I really like it. But let's do something to kind of step it up a bit. So, again, I've stamped this image, and I fussy cut the pig just right there. And I made this little spring device. And all we need to do is peel. I use some tearing tape, so we'll just peel the backing off the tearing tape. Put this on the back of our pig. And on the other side, there's more tearing tape. All we have to do is match up our images again, give a press, and there we go. Now I'll show you, you can work with this spring just a little bit to get it to where you want it. And yes, to mail the card, just press it down and it will mail just fine. But what you'll need for this, for the spring, is some wire. And this, I think it's 2 millimeter. I'm pretty sure it is, but I can't be 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it's not 4, but it's just beading wire. And then a couple of pieces of cardstock, and it can be any color you want. I'm just using basic white to use to attach the spring to. So, and you also need something to wind your wire around to make the spring. And this is just a plastic crochet hook. It's a size G. You can use some of the round chopsticks work just fine, but just anything you have to wrap the wire around will be fine. And you're going to need a paper piercing tool. This is the take your pick tool with the paper piercing tool part locked into place. And you will need 2 pieces of cardstock that are 1.5 by 3/4 inches and scored at 3/4 of an inch. Like I say, all these numbers will be on my blog. And then on one side of the score line, sort of in the center, you just pierce a hole. And then what I did Here's the hole. On the other end, I put a couple of pieces of tearing tape, and then on the other side of that, a couple more pieces. So let's go ahead, and what I do, this is about 3.5 inches or so, maybe not quite as much, of the wire. Leave a little piece out and just start wrapping. Make a little spring. Doesn't take much. There we go, just like that. Pull this off. I'm going to take one of these. Thread it through the hole. If you need to trim it, you can trim it. I'm going to take your pick tool again to get the backing off the tearing tape. Get that right back in place where we had it, and just close this right up, just like that. Now we take the other piece and do the same thing. Poke the wire through, remove the tearing tape, line all these things up, push this down, and there you have your little spring right there. And then you would just remove these pieces of tearing tape, put it on the back of your image, and then put this side onto the card. That's all there is to that. Simple, simple. And it gets easier the longer you practice. So that's what we talked about today, adding a little dimension and maybe a little fun to the cards with the little spring mechanism. You cut out your image and add the spring to the back, or you can cut out your image and add some dimensionals, or you can just die cut an image and put dimensionals on the back. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy.